In the dim twilight of an age, forged in fire and promise, when the sons of Israel trod the earth beneath a canopy of stars and a heavens heavy with divine intent, there unfolded a saga of valor, ruin, and the unyielding majesty of the Almighty. The wilderness sprawled endlessly before them, its sands a forge testing their resolve, its stillness echoing their whispers of doubt against the God who had shattered Egypt's chains. Through these desolate wastes they bore the Ark of the Covenant, a chest of acacia wood clad in gold untainted, its mercy seat overshadowed by cherubim whose wings arched in eternal vigil, a throne not of earthly kings, but of Jehovah, the Lord of hosts, whose voice had thundered from Sinai, and whose hand had parted the Red Sea. Within its hallowed depths rested the tablets of the law, the manna of heaven, and Aaron's rod that bloomed, a trinity of relics pulsing with the heartbeat of divine covenant. Yet in the time of Eli, priest and judge, Israel's devotion flickered like a dying flame, and the hearts of the chosen drifted from righteousness into the dark depths of pride and folly. The sanctuary at Shiloh, once resonant with the songs of the faithful, grew dim with neglect, and the people strayed, their faith a fragile thread stretched taut against the gathering storm. Eli, aged and weary, his eyes clouded by time, could not stem the tide of their waywardness, nor could his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, whose hands profaned the offerings of the Lord with greed and irreverence. The covenant, once a beacon of light, became a distant echo in their midst. From the western plains rose the Philistines, a race clad in iron and fury, their spears gleaming with the promise of slaughter, their chariots rumbling like the harbingers of doom. Their banners blotted the horizon, a tide of darkness rolling toward the encampments of Israel, and their war cries pierced the air, a brazen challenge to the God who had delivered his people from Pharaoh's grasp. The elders of Israel, their faces etched with fear and their counsels clouded by doubt, turned not to the throne of grace nor to the voice of prophecy, but to the ark itself, a relic they deemed a talisman against the tempest. "Let it march before us into battle," they proclaimed, their voices trembling with false bravado, "and the might of the Lord shall smite our foes as in the days of old." Thus, with hands unsteady and hearts unbowed, they bore the ark from Shiloh's holy precincts, not as an act of worship, but as a shield forged in their own design, a presumption that would summon the wrath of heaven. The plains of Ebenezer quaked as the hosts converged, a clash of bronze and blood beneath a sky streaked with the hues of judgment. The warriors of Israel, clad in the armor of their fathers, stood arrayed before the Philistine horde, their swords raised in defiance, their shields gleaming in the sun. At their forefront gleamed the ark, its golden form a radiant flame amidst the chaos, borne aloft by priests whose linen robes fluttered like banners of purity. Yet these bearers stood not in holiness, but in hubris, their faith a hollow shell, their trust misplaced in the object rather than the one who dwelt above it. The Philistines, fearless before the holy sight, charged with a roar that trembled the ground, their blades gleaming like a beast's fangs, their eyes burning with the thirst for victory. The battle unfurled as a tempest of ruin. The air grew thick with the clash of metal, the cries of the wounded, and the dust of 1,000 trampling feet. The sons of Israel fought with the strength of their lineage, yet their valor faltered beneath the weight of their sin. The Philistines pressed onward, their ranks unbroken, their spears reaping a harvest of death. And lo, the decree of the Almighty fell like a thunderbolt upon the unfaithful. 30,000 sons of Israel, heirs of the promise, crumbled beneath the enemy's wrath. Their blood flowed freely, a scarlet tide that marked the earth in sorrow, gathering in the battlefield's dips as a silent witness to the God they had turned away from. Hophni and Phinehas, the priests, stood firm by the ark, their voices lifted in frantic pleas. Yet they fell, their bodies shattered on the stones, their lives extinguished, as the sacred chest slipped from their hold. A wail rose from the camp of Israel, a dirge that rent the heavens and echoed across the hills, a sound of anguish and desolation. The daughters of Zion tore their garments, their tears mingling with the dust, while the elders fell to their knees, their faces buried in hands that had failed to seek the Lord. The ark, God's holy throne, was borne away by the hands of the uncircumcised, its golden light dimmed by the shadow of defeat. The glory of Jehovah seemed departed, a radiance extinguished in the mire of their ruin, and the people stood as orphans beneath a sky that offered no comfort. Yet the tale did not end in the grasp of the foe, for the presence of the Eternal One bows to no captor, nor does his might yield to the profane. The Philistines, drunk with triumph, carried the ark as a spoil to Ashdod, their city of pride, and set it within the shadowed halls of Dagon, their idol of grotesque form, half fish, half lie, a blasphemy carved from stone to mock the Creator's majesty. With exultant cries, they placed the ark before their God, as if to chain the King of Kings to the dust of their making, their laughter ringing through the temple like the clanging of hollow bells. But the night bore witness to a power they could not fathom, and the dawn unveiled a reckoning swift and unyielding. As the first light pierced the gloom, the priests of Dagon entered their sanctuary and stood aghast. Their idol lay prostrate, its carved face pressed into the earth before the ark, a supplicant to the true sovereign whose glory it could not withstand. The next morn brought a sterner judgment. Dagon's head and hands lay severed, strewn across the temple floor, a mute ruin proclaiming his nothingness before the Lord of hosts. The air grew heavy with the silence of awe, and the Philistines trembled, their victory soured by the shadow of a power they had sought to enslave. Then came the wrath of heaven, a scourge that swept through their land like a wildfire of divine fury. Tumors broke out on the Philistines' flesh, a grim curse that branded them for their defiance, a torment that humbled their pride and silenced their boasts. Death followed close behind, a relentless spectre stalking their cities, its cold hand sparing neither the Lord in his tower nor the beggar at his gate. The cities of Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron sank into despair, their markets hushed, their altars forsaken, as the people called to gods powerless to deliver them. The lords of Philistia gathered in their council, their faces pale with dread, their voices quaking as they sought to rid themselves of the burden they had claimed. "This is no spoil of war," they whispered, "but a curse upon our houses." In terror they devised a desperate reprieve. They yoked 2 milch cows, untested by the plough, to a cart hewn from rough timber, and upon it they set the ark, a final offering to the power they could not subdue. No whip drove the beasts, no rein steered their way, yet they moved together, their hooves carving a holy path toward Israel's borders. The fields parted before them, the winds whispered of a holiness untainted, and the lowing of the cows rose like a hymn of unwitting reverence, a sound that pierced the silence of a land humbled by its own folly. The ark returned not in triumph, but in solemn warning, a throne unclaimed by the victorious, a fire unquenched by the scornful. And so it was sung in the lays of old, passed from generation to generation. 30,000 sons of Israel fell, their blood a stain upon the earth, a testament to the peril of wielding heaven's might, without heaven's heart. From the plains of Ebenezer to the halls of Dagon, the tale resounded, a saga of ruin and redemption, of a weapon divine that turned upon the unworthy, and of a God whose presence reigns supreme, even in the shadow of defeat. The ark stood as a beacon of his unyielding will, a scepter of dominion that shattered the proud and humbled the mighty, its glory a light that no darkness could overcome.